Hi everyone, welcome to the online component for our special topics in district finance class. Now that we've seen the first few chapters in the Poston textbook, we're going to delve into some of the theory that really has to deal with this budget planning, ways that we can do it for efficiency and effectiveness. So I want you to note that these are theoretical chapters. What I like about this, and one of the things that, even though this is stuff that I say is organizational specific, Mintzberg was cited a lot in these chapters. This is interesting to me because it shows that we are moving towards business influence over education, which is an argument that I've been making to all of you since day one. So I'm going to highlight some of the more important ideas on budgeting strategy, focus on improvement plans. This is a quick lecture, but most of the Poston lectures are going to be quick lectures, and I think that's a good thing. So there are 6 steps to an effective budget plan, according to Poston. We know that each book that we look at has multiple effective steps to an effective budget plan, but for this one, Poston says establishment of purpose, planning operations, a need assessment, prediction and justification of estimates, government consensus and approval, and implementation and evaluation. We're going to go over each one of these a little bit at a time, like we normally do, and this will be stuff that we can use for your quizzes and your final exam. So, purpose. Every class that you've had before, and some of you are on 4 or 5 classes from me, I always ask you what's your 1-year, 5-year, 10-year plan, what's your building's 1-year, 5-year, 10-year plan, what's your district's 1-year, 5-year, 10-year plan. I always mention this because it's the understanding your objectives. Organizations that do strategic planning and know what they expect in 5 years, they're the ones that are going to be successful over the long term. It's like a parent that decides to give birth and have babies. By the time the child is 1 or 2, if that parent isn't thinking about what school district they're going to move their kid into by 5 or 6, there's a problem. Then they're making last-minute decisions that can be issues. So this is easier said than done because we have accountability pressures to turn around school systems almost instantaneously. But we establish purpose by understanding our objectives. So the planning operations is something that the book looks at, and I think it's interesting. They talk about what we have to do to keep individuals focused on these changes and the tasks on hand. First one is policy expectations. So are there expectations about the leadership, staff, and patrons in the organization? Do the stakeholders know what the vision for the school is and what the expectations for success are? So even though we do our mission and vision statement, more importantly, can they actually say what the expectations are and understand what the vision for the school is and how their role in the school system helps the vision and mission? Is the information appropriate and beneficial to the tasks at hand? Are we giving stakeholders what they need to make informed decisions? Are we giving them information that they really don't need at all, that they have no input or no care on? If you're at the elementary school and you're the kindergarten teacher, do you really care if the 8th grade and 7th grade buildings are going to consolidate or separate? Could it impact you? Sure, but is it valid for what you're doing? Budgeting documents need to be connected to each other and lead to school improvement. You need to be able to show and document how one budgeting situation impacts the other. So, needs assessment. Every course and every professional training we say we have to do a needs assessment. You're sick of hearing about needs assessments. If you have to do district strategic planning, they're going to say, let's do a needs assessment. But when they say that, you have to make sure that it involves the right stakeholders and the right people in order to be effective. Organizational data only matters as if the need assessment actually involves the right people and puts the right people in place. So, predictions and justification of estimates. So, this is the content that really goes into this course. So, we have to make viable predictions based on cost, and we have to justify why those expenses are necessary. Here's the key. Here's one of the things, this is a big idea. Predictions and justification have to be tied to past practice and past performance for them to be relevant and valid. So, governance. How do we govern schools? Well, if there are major changes, then the superintendent and school board have to be on board about the major changes. Sometimes in schools, it takes much more time to make decisions than it ever would in the private sector. This causes problems, but you have to understand this, and it's different depending on the school district and the organization, but you have to build in for this to occur. So when you're trying to make changes, when you're trying to have major budgeting issues happen, you have to realize that the organization has different ways to build in and for consensus for this. So, implementation and evaluation. The book suggests starting small with implementation. This is perfect for this class. Because if you worked at a district that invested so much money into Common Core, meaning that you bought the Journeys curriculum, you bought the Go Math curriculum, and you said, we're going to go into Common Core, and then the state says, no more Common Core, now you have textbooks that are all Common Core related textbooks. So you as the superintendent have to say, do we still teach those textbooks? Do we augment those textbooks, or do we take a loss? This is a difficult decision for school districts to make. Me, myself, I could see the Journeys books being used for other subject areas. There's a lot in there that you could use for history. Go Math, you pretty much shoot yourself in the foot because the math expectations are 1 year accelerated with what a lot of the state standards were expecting. So that being said, do you continue teaching this, and do the students actually get something for it? Does it help your district? So the budgets have to be a living document. Budgets are going to change. Finances are going to change. There are going to be expenses that you never expected to happen. So in order to improve organizations, you have to realize that the budget truly is a living document. So Poston talks about per pupil expenditure and long-range planning. Here's what I want you to know on this, and I think this is important. If I was teaching a culture class or leadership class, which I don't do here, but if I were, I would tell you, you look at the government parties. When there's a new government party at the state level or federal level, that's when changes to expenditures occur. If we have an incumbent that stays in office and nothing changes, don't expect major expenditures. Can you figure out when this could occur? Yes. You know your organization. You know when a superintendent has the years to retire. You know if they're on a 5-year contract that they're in year 4 and they're not coming back. Or you know that they're going to try to renew it for 3 more years. You know this. So be smart about it. Try to understand that you have control over this and you are able to do long-range planning based on this. So the last thing that we mention on this chapter is professional development aligning for budgeting. In order to keep satisfaction high in the organization, stakeholders have to understand why we're doing something. Why are we implementing new software? Why are we changing our attendance policy? Why are we changing our transportation routes? This is relevant information that goes to all the stakeholders that impacts. We talked about transportation in here already. So who has to know if the bus route changes? Well, the bus drivers do, the students do, and the parents do, and obviously the principals do in case it takes time for this to occur. So if the goals exist for the school, they have to be coherent with the direction of the budget. So that's it for this chapter. Like I said, these are short ones. The next chapter is going to look at cutting costs and increasing productivity. 3 and 4 are theory, 5 through 10 are integration. Use this really to understand the theory and why Poston is doing what he's doing in this book. Thank you.